Delighted to introduce my colleague Deanna Hammi. Deanna works with me on a project we got some funding for last year. I might talk about it a little bit in the next session, but she's a wonderful colleague to have on board in the project, looking at how low-income families are managing with non-standard labour and how they basically cope with their home life, the care life, and their sort of social reproductive lives that has to happen in and around this kind of challenging work. And Deanna, myself, and Mary, who's down there as well, have worked together quite closely. Deanna is soon to be a newly minted PhD in the School of Psychology any day now. Very well earned, and we're much looking forward to celebrating that with her. Deanna is going to talk to us today about her doctoral research, and the title we've got for Deanna's work this afternoon is Storying Realities and Visual Methodologies. So I'll pass over to you, Deanna. I don't know if you'd like to stand here or sit down, but I'll pass over to you.
Thank you for the applause. And thank you for reminding me what my title was. I'm pretty sure I kept it quite broad to give myself wiggle room, but I am talking about my PhD and about how I came. Well, kind of. I guess it'll be easier to just do it, and then you guys will kind of get a sense of what I came to during that. But as my PhD was on intergenerational trauma, but on my own, understanding my own experiences of trauma, why my childhood was the way that it was, and how it was passed down to me through the generations. So on that journey, even though the way I communicate now is about how to communicate that journey, when I was going through the journey, I was just reflecting on this actually. Using art and storytelling, it was my way of processing. It was my way of caring for myself, because I needed to get it out. I needed to express it. And now I've gone to the point where I use it to then communicate to others about that journey. And I was just talking over the lunchtime, and a couple of mahi wairua practitioners who I love, they've been really good teachers to me over the last few years. They tell me a lot, actually, that my life is a koha to others. And so that's what this has become, what my PhD is. It was for me, and now it's a koha to others. So I'm just going to tell a story, and I will get to my slide before we start. There we go. Oh, no, not there we go. I pressed the button. Oh, thank you. So I'll tell a story and then see what happens afterwards. This is the story of Hinengaro. She is the keeper of the seeds that were passed down to her. These were the seeds that made me, her mum whispered in her ear as she placed the seeds in her little hands. Keep them safe and nourish them. Never let them go. Her father came next. These are the seeds that made me, he said as he added them to the pile in her hands. Keep them safe, water them every day. Never let them go. She kept those seeds so close to her that over time they became a part of her, embedding themselves into her being. They first took root in her head, and as they grew, she could hear voices speaking into her mind. At first, the voices were quiet, barely a whisper in her head. She couldn't quite make out what they were saying, but she knew that they were there. As she grew, so did the voices, growing louder each and every day. Over time, she realized the voices were echoing what those around her were saying. The screaming from her mum telling her that she was useless, that she wasn't good enough, that she wished she was never born. The voice of her dad, though, never showed up. A deathly silence is all that was there. The silence of the seeds he gave her, a reminder of her unworthiness, that she wasn't enough to keep him there. She looked at the rest of the seeds in her hands and said, "So this is how I make you grow. The voices around me will nurture you even more, and I will never be alone." Then she placed the rest of the seeds on top of her head, doing as her parents said. If these seeds become a part of me, she thought, I am doing what I was told. I'll bury them deep in my mind and never let them go. That little girl grew up, and each day those seeds too grew more and more. The roots wrapped around her brain, her throat, her heart, diving deep into her soul. The stories the voices narrated travelled throughout her being on repeat. They were told. The voices told her brain to hate herself. The pain was all she was worth. that home wasn't a safe place to be anymore, to run away from the hurt. The voices told her heart that she wasn't loved, that she belonged in the dirt. The voices told her throat to be quiet, don't speak. It's not safe to make a sound. No one cares what you have to say anyway. Keep your words bottled down. Years went by, sweeping past in a flash, and suddenly Hinengaro had grown into a woman, and all those seeds had bloomed. She was now surrounded by thorns and vines, held down in a dark cocoon. She looked all around, and all she saw was darkness. Darkness was all she knew. She had spent so long away from her body, listened to the voice of the seed as it spoke into her mind, that by the time she came back, years had already passed by. She looked around her, and black was all she could see. Her feelings were no longer even there. No emotions, no thoughts of her own, no idea how she had even gotten here. This must be how life is supposed to be, she told herself. So I won't move from here. Day by day, this is how she lived in darkness, surrounded by the plants she had nourished from seeds, now her confidants, her greatest friends, closer to her than family. One day, though, she opened her eyes and noticed something different about the dark. There was a speck sitting there beyond her cocoon, peeking through the gaps. A bright whiteness she hadn't seen in a long time. It sparkled at her, teasing her, telling her to come take a look, to reach out for it and grab it and see how it could change her world. She waited and watched, wondering if it would simply go away if she pretended it wasn't there. Try as she might, though, she couldn't ignore it. It was just too bright to bear. So she sat up and moved the branches and vines out of her way, intent on making that light disappear. Not knowing that those first steps beyond that cocoon would be her last time there, that they would one day disintegrate, return to the earth to be transformed into new life, that to make that little bright light disappear, she would flood the world, her world, with light. And instead it would be the darkness that would leave, with not a single trace left in sight. I just need a break. I always find it, I have gotten to a point where I can, tell these stories, and it's still quite a caring activity for me in expressing it. I'm feeling like I'm being too casual right now, but I'm just going to talk, and we'll see what comes out. I was reflecting a bit on care and what that actually means, and a lot of it for me, in order to survive from the caring for myself, there was a lot of dissociation. And that can be viewed as something not great to do, but it helped me to live. It helped me to survive. So that was an act of care for me. And my understanding of care, what it meant to be cared for, was informed by my world around me, by my parents, by my family. But then as I got older, the wider world, especially when you start recognizing what it means to be Māori in this space. And it's like, what is care? If I'm not receiving care from these spaces around me, how do you give care to yourself? And that informed how I understood love for myself. And I just didn't. I didn't love myself. I didn't know what that was. And so it's interesting, I guess, how this morning has informed. It's like I'm just reflecting more on care in my own personal worlds and what that actually looks like, how it manifests in your everyday lived reality and lived experience of it. And care for me was surviving. It was just surviving because I didn't know anything else. And I think, in telling, I guess when we're trying to get it back to the actual point, when we're communicating research and communicating what it's about, when you're taking someone's stories, it's important to remember the life in them, the tears in them, the blood in them. It's what's in there. How do I make sure that when I'm going out with this responsibility, going out there and I'm doing justice to it, I'm honouring the sacredness within it. And then I think, through telling those stories and honouring the sacredness in it and make sure that you can capture that power within it, you can reach the hearts. Because I do find that storytelling in this way, it gets to the heart. And you get to the heart, and I believe you can change the mind, you can change a lot. And so, yeah, That's where I've come to. That was just a random one. But yes, thank you.